Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Sam Dolce. I'm an attorney partner over here at Milestone. Milestone is a qualified settlement fund administrator as well as a settlement planning company. We specialize in getting money to people and getting over to them quickly. And so, what we're going to be talking about today is specifically how we can get money to the Juul generation, specifically Gen Z. As you probably know, it might be a little bit of a stereotype, but Gen Z is always in their phones. So how are we going to actually get money to people who may not use paper checks, may not use paper money, but we're working in an industry that usually is sending out paper checks. And so what we've been able to do is we build digital pathways that allow us to reach that Juul generation. So as you very well likely know, Juul is in the process of possible settlement. Most of the plaintiffs in the case are between the ages of 18 and 25. How are we actually going to get those payments to those people? And so my assertion is that digital payments is the way to pay Gen Z. It's also the way to distribute out funds, just generally speaking, because it's faster, it is cheaper, and it is more efficient. So today I'm going to go through a brief pathway presentation. I'll show you how it works, how it looks, how it feels, kind of talk through it. If you have any questions at any point, you'll see that there's a question portal on the right-hand side. You can ask the question. I will see it live, and I will try to respond to it within the conversation. If I don't get to it within the conversation, I'll respond at the end. And please, there's only a few dozen of us on today, so you can ask anything, and we'll just kind of keep the flow of conversation going. Generally speaking, I try not to take up too much of your time. This shouldn't take more than 20 minutes in total. So please ask those questions. You won't be dragging down the presentation. This is what we're here to do. Just give me one moment. I'm going to share my screen. And with that, you can see the base of the Pathway website. Now, what we're able to do through the Pathway is three things. Your clients can sign their closing statement, they can review their planning options, and they can choose their payment method. Now, all three of these are really important steps. First, signing the closing statement. Traditionally, that's done through mailing out the closing statement or a settlement packet, expecting your clients to receive that in the mail, fill it out, actually read it, and fill it out with neat handwriting, mail it back. Don't forget on the back seat of their car as they're driving their kids to soccer practice on the way to get the dry cleaning, whatever have you. And then once you receive it back, actually getting that information, taking it in, scanning it in, or having human error filling it out, putting it into spreadsheets, and then going through the process of printing and mailing out checks. It's creating so many time delays, so much room for human error. Instead, we just replace it all with the signing of a closing statement via DocuSign. It's automatically uploaded into our system and then uploaded into the law firm system. They can review their planning options. I'm a former litigator. This is extremely important to me. The idea that even when we're doing mass torts, we should be doing planning with our clients, especially those who are younger. I mean, if you're talking about $100,000 going to a 19-year-old, they may not be making the best decisions with that right away. And so what we're trying to do is just provide the option to do planning and almost an encouragement to do so. And I'll show you how we can actually include videos of you talking to your clients on the pathway. Lastly, they can choose their payment method. Within this, you'll see all sorts of different digital payments. The most popular one we've seen used is Zelle. And so I'll just do a little demo on that as well. So here goes nothing. Let's start our demo. So as you can see, step one, step two, step three, this is available via mobile too. So you could just get it right on your cell phone as well. The client's going to click step one to review and sign. Also, I'll just say this can be personalized by settlement, law firm, etc. This is just the base Milestone one. We have our first level of verification. So we're sending a unique link to the client by text message or email. They click on that link, they go to the first page, and then here they're going to be asked to verify their identity. Typically, we use last four social. Today, we're just going to run a test. And that test number was already used, so we're going to use a different one. So this one wasn't used. And so now DocuSign is preparing our closing statement. As those on this call who know, who've prepared these in the past, closing statements can sometimes be 40 pages with lots of different areas to fill. Sometimes they're just a letter and an accounting. So this is just, looks like an Escher settlement. We have our first letter on the front, and then just a quick accounting or ledgering of what has occurred, what the costs are, what the total payout is. What we see most clients do is they get to the front of the DocuSign, they press finish, they have to sign, and they press finish to complete. Once they click this button, that is uploaded into our Salesforce and is also then uploaded into your firm. We can either do that through templating or API, both relatively simple. You can see that's a lot easier than mailing out 40 pages, having your client review and sign it, and mailing it back. Just like that, we've recorded that response, we have that click data, we have the time viewed, we have all the information. Next, they get to go to review my options. And here's where we get to do the settlement planning. This is just the basic template. The first one, they can do structures. Second one, they can protect their benefits through spend downs or trusts. Both of these buttons will connect them directly into a settlement planner. So let's say you're getting $100,000, you're 19, you want your settlement to last a long time, you click I want a plan. As soon as you click that button, you're placed into a queue. You're passed over to our settlement planning team, you're getting a phone call right away. Say if they're on Medicaid and they're worried about getting a check for $3,000 that'll knock them over the limit, they can say, I want to keep my benefits. Again, they'll be connected to a settlement planner and they're able to do settlement planning. Maybe they'll do a spend down, be able to keep their benefits and get their money. Always the option to skip planning. I think that's important, right? We're providing options. We're not trying to be paternalistic. So here, this client's just going to click skip and you'll see a waiver page. The waiver page is powerful because a lot of the times attorneys will have concerns around different settlements. So for example, they might want to make sure they communicated something to the client. We can put this in a waiver page language and just make sure the client clicks through and says, I understand. The I understand button is really powerful, especially if you're worried about grievances or anything like that. Your client read the information, they saw the information, and they clicked I understand. That's going to make you look really good. Our last step is choosing the payment method. And this is kind of the reason for today's webinar. One second. It's one thing to mail a check out to a bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds. It's another thing to send them a Zelle. What we've been seeing more and more often is the use of digital payment methods within these options. So you'll see there's paper check by mail or direct deposit. The other ones being PayPal, Zelle, and MasterCard. This MasterCard is a digital MasterCard, and it's a specialized product we actually fought for. You'll see that there's no fee on it for the first year. And if they want it as a plastic card, there's just a $3 fee. So generally speaking, this is very, very useful to the population that's unhoused or population that's been moving around a lot. There's plenty of people within the age range of 18 to 25 that are unbanked or underbanked. And if so, it shouldn't mean that they should get their check and then have to go to a check casher and pay a significant fee. Instead, what we can do is send them a digital MasterCard or a PayPal. PayPal, especially in working communities, is a very, very commonly used payment method, I would say. PayPal, it can be used for all sorts of things. You can shop on Home Depot or any major retail store with PayPal, direct on your phone. And so what we see a lot of clients doing is this MasterCard or PayPal option. I'll also say this digital MasterCard can be transferred into your Apple Pay. For those who are like me, who go to the grocery store with just their cell phone and pay with their Apple Pay during checkout, it's very, very useful. Something that's oftentimes used by the younger generation as well. Direct deposit, been in direct deposit forever now. It's a commonly chosen option. I'll show you Zelle really quickly because that's honestly the most used option, especially in this age demographic. I'm going to put in my cell phone number and press next. So with that, it's going to send me a code to verify, and I just got that text message. My payment is 824. 757. Oops. And I'm going to verify that code. Success, your payment section has been recorded. You'll receive payment within the next 10 business days. And so just like that, the client was able to sign their closing statement, figure out if they needed a structure or a trust or to do a spend down, and to choose how they were going to get paid. We process payments on Fridays, and so therefore your client is going to be able to go right on through this process and then get payment relatively quickly. If the Zelle was going to be processed on Friday, that means this person would have been waiting 4 days for their payment. Compare that to the traditional way of doing this, and you can really see how impactful and powerful this is. We see the highest conversion rate amongst young adults. The second highest is amongst adults between the ages of 50 and 65. And so those are two oftentimes ranges you'll see in mass torts, age ranges. If we send this out to your clients and only, let's say 60% of them do it and 40% don't, we can still do the traditional method with the other 40%, but it greatly reduces the amount of clients we have to call and reach out to. Also, I will say sometimes the more vocal clients are the fastest to move through. So if you're worried about those Facebook reviews or the constant phone calls you're getting to your office, being able to provide a digital payment solution like this will greatly reduce those amount of phone calls. And so I'm not the only one that's had headaches in that department, I'm sure. And so by being able to provide this greater level of service, you're able to meet that demand and needs. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Just got one. Can my firm customize the text on these pages? That is a really, really great question. So the entire pathway can be customized around the settlement. And so I'll say around Juul specifically, we're dealing with a younger group of claimants. And so generally speaking, they're probably going to need a little bit more explanation, especially around financial issues. And so maybe the text on these pages is a little bit longer, or better yet, maybe we're actually embedding video. And so a lot of times what you'll see, especially in step 2, is embedded videos of people who can speak to these issues. Maybe it's you as the attorney. Maybe we're working around a survivor case and Bridie Farrell, who works on survivor issues with our office, is on the video. If we're working around survivors, if we're working on veterans, maybe we have a veteran representative come on and we're seeking to how we are able to figure out these issues, right? By creating that sort of digital content that they can click through on their phones, we're going to be able to reach more people and speak to more people. I have many more questions, so just give me a moment. So the next one is, how do we resolve payment issues with any of the digital platforms? Or this case, so specifically with Zelle. If a claimant says they did not get the money, for instance, it's a great question. One of the most powerful parts of this whole thing is that we're actually able to track who requested what at what point and what the funds actually did, right? And so unlike us just mailing out a check into the wind and hoping the client cashes it, we can actually track and see the money and how it flows. And so, for instance, if somebody clicked the Zelle option, we actually get a timestamp of when that option was selected and get to save that click data. It's automatically uploaded into our Salesforce, and so into our database. And so we can share that out directly to the firm. We would batch the payments over to Zelle on that Friday, and when that went out, we would know exactly from Zelle. And so all that information is recorded and can be provided to you. Next question is, what is the cost of this service? We charge $200 per claimant. That's a flat fee. We establish the QSF. We do all the banking setup. We do all the settlement planning, and we do all the distribution. We also do the ledgering. We prepare all the closing statements. Excuse me. All of what you're used to your qualified settlement fund administrator doing, we do all of that work. And so we charge $200 per claimant. I will say the smallest group we're doing right now is 6 claimants. The largest group we're doing is 24,000. So it definitely varies at size, but generally speaking, $200 per claimant for these services. Are you able to provide a periodic summary report showing payments made, method of payment, and date of payment? It's a great question. Yes. So we get live updates every 20 minutes direct into our database over who selected what and how people have moved through. Typically, we'll provide that in a condensed report weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how the firm wants it or at what point of the settlement we're at. And so, yes, all that information is summarized and provided to you. And then also if a client is calling in and saying like, I did this and this didn't work out, you can always steer that question and call to us. So really we're just reducing the amount of interactions you have to have with the client, especially around these like technical issues. So you can focus on the legal issues and actually giving the case one. We have lots more questions. Would my firm be able to add our logo and branding to our Pathway site? Really great question. Generally speaking, yes. Some firms have their own pathway and they're able to build it out in their own colors. They have their logo on top, and we're doing most of their settlement work, if not all of it. And so with that being said, definitely. And oftentimes we can even change the name of the website to reflect the law firm. The next question is, if a claimant wants to change their payment option, is there a time frame to accommodate that change? It's a really great question, and it's one that comes out a lot. Generally speaking, we try to not have this occur, right? We don't want people switching 5 times in a week while they're getting paid. With that being said, if somebody picked a payment option, it was the wrong option, they call our office. As long as we haven't distributed the funds yet, as of that Friday, we're able to rectify the situation. So answer is yes. Next question is, if we have a litigation group that is deceased injured with multiple heirs and total disbursement, can this be handled? It's a great question. All the probate issues are, there's a multitude of issues around digital payments and probate. Let me get into all of them. There's quite a few. Firstly, typically if you're dealing with an estate, they're not going to want a Zelle payment. They're going to want a paper check, and we're going to do this through a traditional lens. So instead of us sending out digital payments to all the estates, we would just list that as these are going through a traditional method. We make contact with that estate attorney and we send the paper check. With that being said, if there are multiple heirs, so I'm thinking of right now we're doing some USV SST cases that have up to 17 heirs of a single payment. Each one of those heirs can get their own login and use their own payment, their own pathway unique link for their portion of the settlement. So when it comes to those who've been deceased, there is sort of, is it an estate? Is it direct into the estate, or is it going direct to heirs, or is it apportionment of both? So generally speaking, estate attorneys don't want to get paid in the Zelle. They want the check to put directly into the estate. And so that's why that's going to go through a paper check, where if we're dealing with all the multiple heirs, those would go through pathway. Great question being asked. Where's all this original data being generated from? It's an Excel spreadsheet from the attorney or the law firm, etc. It's a really great question. So all this is revolving around data and how we are moving around that data. So generally speaking, there's 2 options. One, we're building an API direct into that law firm. So when those cases settle in, they're pressing a button, it's automatically uploaded into our database. The clients are pushed out through pathway. That is the highest level that we do with a law firm. We generally do that if we're doing most of their mass tort settlements. And we built that up with, maybe a dozen firms. The more common method I would say that we see more often is some sort of templating. So they're providing that Excel data file of, client name and all their information, as well as their identifying number. They're providing that to us. We're matching fields into our system. We're uploading it. We have a general template that we use, but more often than not, law firms are used to providing this template to their lien administrator and QSF administrator. And so we're just taking their template information and mapping it ourselves. We've done this with countless number of law firms. Everyone's, Excel sheet is a little bit different, but it's all generally the same information. So we're able to bring it in and track it just fine. Great question that was just asked. Is there a mechanism or system in place that checks to see if estate or bankruptcy is resolved prior to releasing checks and payments? Yes, there's quality control processes all the way down the line. And one of them being, especially around probate issues or bankruptcy issues, those accounts are always flagged and included in a separate batch. I would also say traditionally, if there's bankruptcy or probate issues, they're going through that more traditional method, unless we're talking about paying a multiple of heirs. Guys, these are great questions. I'm just like, this is awesome. Normally I ask if there's any questions, there's none. I just gotta keep talking. I'm just gonna talk about a few more things that I think are really important. So this is all built SOC 2. SOC 2, if you're not aware, is the level of security that's given to these types of financial transactions, and it's the highest level. I also say it's all built on AWS, which is probably the safest cloud or software there is currently at the moment. And so therefore, we're talking about security, it's very, very high. I'll also say that there is a link, that's this unique link that's sent to your client is only sent to them. And we can do things like the Zelle payment will only go to a cell phone that also matches the client data file that we have. So if I put in my cell phone here and I was not the client on that link that had that cell phone number associated with that account, that would not pay to me. When we put in those sort of security provisions, it's paramount that the law firm communicates that to the client. So this is how you're going to get paid. Please be aware, look out for the email or text message. Please have your information with us up to date, because if your account on file or your address on file or your phone number on file is wrong, you won't be able to get payment. That's all really important. And so what we've seen with law firms that are doing that work with us, that are communicating with their client up front. I mean, we did a new batch just this morning where we had over 40% payment completion within the first few hours. So they had over 40% of their clients had signed their closing statement, done their settlement planning, and chosen their payment method just in the first few hours. If you work in mass torts, the idea of getting to 40% in just a few hours versus, getting 40% of the settlement packets back within 2 weeks, it's really exciting, really, really exciting. Oh, I have another question. The law firm submits an email address onto the worksheet that's not accurate, you'll get an email delivery error message immediately inform our office so we can reconcile. Yes, I mean, if there's any sort of data typo, we always go to fix that right away. I'll also say is that we review all sorts of data from the law firm, and we're your second set of eyes. So we have done this for a very long time. We have a very experienced team. Our job is to make your life easier. So if there's any sort of issue with phone numbers or email addresses, those would most certainly be addressed. Another question, is there a time limit in which a claimant's unique pathway link expires? If so, can they then request a new one? It's a really good question. Generally speaking, we can put expirations around things for security purposes that as we see fit, and we can send out new links or multiple links. The creation of links is relatively simple. It's part of the reason why this is great. Also, changes to the payment pathway can always be made as well. So for example, if we're doing a larger batch of claimants, like I mentioned before, doing, north of 10,000, if you do the batch of the first 200 and 2 came back with issues, or they were confused about language on the site or something like that, we can go and actually change the site and then expire old links and send out new links. And so it really just gives us some more flexibility instead of mailing a settlement packet and then there's a typo on page 15, there's a typo on page 15 and we have to live with it. If people are all getting confused by the second paragraph and calling in about it, too bad, right? That's what we prepare, that's what has to be mailed out to everybody. We're able to actually make changes to the site, expire links, create new links. And we can always create new links, that's easy. All right, I think I answered most of those questions. Oh, we have more ones. Okay. Does the pathway ask claimants for facial recognition or to upload an ID prior to release of funds? It most certainly can. Around the most sensitive cases, sometimes these things are requested for. We typically will not use facial recognition, but the upload of ID has been considered into this creation. What I'll say is more common is last four social or some other identifying information, whether it's a specialized passcode that's presented to them in person or something of the sort. You can imagine there's all sorts of different levels of security requests around different types of cases. We work around every different type of settlement you could imagine. Mostly in the mass tort space, though, what we've seen is we do the unique link, the last four on social, and the verification of the address and name on the bank account or the phone number attached to the Zelle, PayPal. And then the MasterCard, obviously, just like a paper check, if you're doing a physical MasterCard, is going to be mailed to the address on file. So those are all those different options. So we had 30 minutes and we're at 2:26. I'm just going to close by saying, if we don't have any more questions, that this is the future of paying people. I am not Gen Z, I'm a millennial, but I will say that I don't use cash pretty much ever. And I barely know how to cash a check. Everything I've ever done has been, my first job washing dishes at a Greek restaurant that was set up with automatic pay through direct deposit of my paycheck. And every job I've ever had, that's how I've been paid. I think it's kind of odd that we're in, a billion-dollar industry of mass torts, and we're still paying people through paper checks. I will tell you this, for Gen Z, it's even more so than it is for me. We did a rough poll of our office of all the Gen Z employees to see how many people knew what it meant to endorse a check. And I'll say we were about 50% knew what it meant. And so what we're talking about is people who are very fluent in working on their phones, very fluent in their computers and websites, but not necessarily fluent in the more annual ways of being paid. And so just like, the car replaced the horse and buggy, or, other sort of advances that we've seen in our society, this is going to be how people get paid in the future. And so might as well set it up now. Generally speaking, we also charge a lot less than our competition because we're not having to staff a mailroom. We're not having to answer as many phone calls. We're not going to have to deal with as many issues. There's just a lot less human error. There's a lot less mistakes. And therefore, we can be a lot less expensive. So thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, please reach out to Milestone, right on our website, milestone7th.com, or just reach out to me directly. And thank you so much. Talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.